I haven't heard Donna yet, but I will admit that Donna is probably better than Certified Lover Boy. Now, I need all of you Kanye stans to understand that and leave me the fuck alone when I try to explain why Certified Lover Boy is actually good.
I'm working on dying.
Said you belong to the streets, but the streets belong to me. It's like home to me.
Listen, I understand that's maybe a highlight and there's many other good songs, but I'll get into that. Listen, this is a review for Certified Lover Boy. This is the EP show where I talk about whatever the fuck I want to talk about. And right now, I'm kind of hyped up. That song really got me hyped up because it's so fucking good. It only makes me mad that people are saying this album is bad. When it's not bad, the album is just very much Drake and just what Drake does. And depending on how you feel about Drake is how you'll feel about the album. It has nothing to do with it objectively looking at it. But let me backtrack. Let me do a little bit of preamble. You know, there's been a lot of hype for Certified Lover Boy, right? Like Certified Lover Boy's been an album he announced like what? Like I don't even remember how long ago it's been since he announced it. I think October of 2020, I believe. So almost a year ago. And people even before that knew that he was working on a new album, right? So in that way, you understand, okay, there's been so much hype. People have been anticipating this album. He even put out a trailer saying that the album was going to come out January 2021. Odell Beckham Jr. said that it could have come out the first day of 2021, which would have been really interesting if he had gone through that, right? Like, if he didn't, like, break his fucking foot and, like, other shit happened to him. I know that there's a lot of personal things that happened to Drake, which is why he delayed it. But just imagine if he would have put it, like, the first day of 2021. That would have been, like, such a fun, just, oh shit, you know what I mean? Drake is starting off the year. Maybe a lot of the bad things that happened this year wouldn't have happened if Drake had put out that album the first day of 2021. Maybe it's a butterfly effect kind of thing where like he put out the album and all of a sudden the COVID just completely disappeared. I don't know. But here's the thing. A lot of hype this album had, right? And then things got crazier and crazier the more he delayed the album. It was like endless delays to the point where like people were expecting the album, people were anticipating the album, but it was just like, okay, when is this gonna drop? I mean, because Drake kept alluding to the end of summer, which ultimately he was kind of right. It was the end of the end of the summer, right? Like, even I mean, it's the end of the summer, but also like the beginning of fall. So he was kind of off with that. But regardless, like people kept saying, "Oh, it's gonna come out March. It's gonna come out June. It's gonna come out August." There were like a couple of days off from what it actually turned out to be, but still, endless delays were definitely increasing the hype even more. And then a week before, this motherfucker announces the album. Actually, not even a week before, like 5 days before, he officially announces it on his Instagram, and the cover came out. And I feel like, depending on how you felt about the cover, is almost like a microcosm of how you felt about the album, right? Because it's like, in many ways, that cover is the perfect cover for this album, where it's like, it's so ridiculous and like so Drake, and it's almost like jumping the shark a little bit for a lot of people who didn't really like Drake in the first place, and they're gonna look at the cover, right? Oh, this is definitely the perfect analogy for this album, right? Because you look at the cover and you just see a bunch of emojis, right? You think, oh, this is lazy. This is just lazy. There's no artistic integrity to this. Drake, didn't give a fuck. There's no effort into this cover. He just paid a bunch of money to Damien Hirst, and Damien Hirst gave him a mid or, horrible cover art for a lot of people. But turns out I actually really loved the cover, and maybe that primed me for liking the album as much as I did, because I saw that cover. I'm like, oh, that's, first of all, it was funny, right? Because I think it's undeniably funny if you see a bunch of pregnant women of all different colors and ethnicities. When I say colors, I'm talking about the clothing, not their skin. That will be fucked up. I'm talking about their color clothing and their ethnicities. And you see that, and I don't know what point I don't know if I was talking about other people or me. I was seeing that, and I just thought, oh, this is pretty funny. Especially because the album is called Certified Lover Boy. There's a bunch of pregnant women in the cover. I got it. I thought it was funny. I thought it was unique. Obviously, like, how many covers have you seen that are like this? And I feel like I'm not in the camp of people saying, like, just because it's emojis is automatically bad. Definitely not in the camp of that. I think just because something looks minimalist or like no effort was put into it doesn't actually mean that. And also, if it's unique, then I can't, fault you for that, right? Like, if something is so, like, you see all these painters where they sell a painting on a canvas of just like a dot of a color, right? And it's so simple, and it gets sold for millions of dollars. People's like, oh, there's no merit to it. There's no effort. That shit's just stupid. Actually, no. That's me responding to you that think that way. It's like, no, there is actually effort. It's just outside of the box, and it's something nobody had seen before or had thought of doing. Sometimes the simplest things often get overlooked, and nobody thinks of those. Sometimes people get so complicated and overthink things so much that when somebody goes simple with it and does something that nobody would do because maybe they think, oh, no, that's too simple. All the same, what's the phrase? Oh, yeah, it's still unique all the same, even if it is simple. So I admire when I see something that's unique, and I don't discount it if it's like lack of effort. You know what I mean? Or like if it's too simple, because, if it's unique, it's unique, right? If I've never seen it before, it's going to stand out to me. And also, it doubles as a fucking marketing tool where, like, that cover came out and that's all everybody talked about for like 3 days. Brand are doing, we're parodying this, like ESPN, like so many brands. You go through all the people that played on this joke, and it's like, yeah, this is kind of a genius marketing tool. But I love the cover, and from the jump, I should have known there was going to be this much divisiveness from this album. If that was a cover, that was just like a preview of what the shit show was going to be like when the album came out. And it did came out, and it's very divisive. People either love it or hate it. People either think it's the worst fucking album of all time, it's boring as shit, or one of Drake's best albums since If You're Reading This Is Too Late. I happen to fall on this is Drake's best album since If You're Reading This Is Too Late. And I don't see how people can dispute this. Because I'm seeing a lot of people saying this album's bad, this album's boring, it's this and that. And it's fine, right? I understand that, but it's like, what are you comparing it to? One. Two, are you even a Drake fan? Which I'll get into in a second, but it's like, I don't know, man. It's annoying, because if we start actually comparing it to different albums, like Views, like I'm pretty sure Views was Views was around 20, 21 tracks. I think Views is exactly 20 tracks. More Life, probably around there, like 17 tracks maybe. And Scorpion, it's like 25 tracks. Those are the 3 albums that Drake released before this one. And I don't know how you can tell me that any of those 3 albums are better than this album. They may have like bigger hits, obviously, right? Like Hotline Bling is such a big hit. Controller is such a big hit. I'm trying to think of all the hits from his past couple. In My Feelings, obviously, I'm Upset, God's Plan. Those are all hits. But in terms of quality, none of the hits from the past 3 Drake albums were like incredible. You know what I mean? It's like they were just like fine and were big, and you heard it so much, and it was just like a typical pop song. It was like, okay, Drake is obviously going for the pop single. This one didn't have any singles, which I think should be commended. Even if you don't like the album, I feel like that should be commended, because so many people were cynical about this album, saying, oh, he's going to put a bunch of the singles on the album for the numbers, which would have been the smart thing. But I feel like even Drake was like, you know what? I'm not going to do that just to prove to you motherfuckers that my shit sells, even without hot singles. I can give a fuck about how many plays Laugh Now, Cry Later has, or Wants and Needs. And FYI, it's a lot of plays. So it's like the fact that he didn't include those singles in this album, I completely respect, and you have to respect them if you care about integrity of music. Because, anybody else would put all those big singles, even if they were so long ago, and would make no sense in this album. They will still put it in this album, in their respective albums, any other artist. But Drake didn't do that, so I think that's commendable. But let's talk about the reason why I think this is better than every other album he's put out since If You're Reading This Is Too Late. And it's because every song feels purposeful. The album feels purposeful. And that's the thing that I keep coming back to, that I feel like people may be missing. Because, you know, whether you like an album or you don't like an album depends on how many songs you liked of it, what you thought of the feel. And a lot of people simply didn't like the songs on the album, right? At least in the first half. The first half of this album is what gets often criticized a lot, right? So I understand that you can like not like the songs, even though you can't say they're bad. Or people are like, oh, this is boring. When you're listening to like In the Bible with Lil Durk and Giveon, or Girls Want Girls, right? Like people saying those songs are boring. I feel like, yeah, it's boring to you because you're listening to them with the wrong context. You're not listening to it the way it's supposed to be listened to, which is in a club. And granted, I mean, a lot of, you know, people that are listening to this Drake album are, I don't want to say losers. That's a little too much. I mean, that's kind of fucked up to say if you don't like Drake, you're a loser. But maybe they're not in the environment, or have never been in the environment that Drake is when he wants his songs to be played. Right? Like Girls Want Girls. Obviously that lesbian line is one of those lines that you just have to talk about because it's so ridiculous. But it is tongue-in-cheek. But since it's Drake, people are going to criticize it. And I get it. I mean, it's like one of those lines that I can't help but like chuckle every time I hear it. Say that you're a lesbian girl, me too. I was like, it's like, I just kind of, I can't help but laugh. It's like, okay, Drake, that is patently ridiculous. Patently ridiculous. I don't even know what the phrase means, but I've heard other people say it. So I get criticizing that line. But it's like it's not that crazy. And I feel like a lot of the haters of the Drake album, of this, you know, Certified Lover Boy, would bring up like a line like that, or bring up the song I'm Way Too Sexy as like negatives for the whole album. Like when the album first came out, I went to the release thread in Reddit, you know what I mean, the subreddit Hip Hop Heads, right? And everybody was talking about, this album isn't good. Like everybody on Reddit is against this album, majority of them, right? And that was like my first impression of the album before I even listened to it. Which is why I think when I actually heard it, and I was like, these songs are not that bad. It actually like caused whiplash, because then I started to overrate it because people had underwritten it so much. But yeah, like when I saw the release thread and what people were saying on Reddit when it first came out, they were saying they didn't like it, but they weren't really saying why. The only things they were saying is like, oh, I can't believe, like lines that are crazy from Drake. Like, I had to fuck a lot of girls to get a kid like this, which isn't even that crazy of a line. It's just, you know, I was a hoe. I had to fuck, you know, I had to get it off my system to have a good kid, which I don't think is that crazy of a line. Or like the lesbian line, which is admittedly crazy. Or the, what's the line? Or just the whole I'm Way Too Sexy song. It was just like jumping the shark for a lot of people. But they were just mentioning moments and not really songs or like legitimate criticisms, because a line here and there isn't enough to say an album's bad. So that's how I knew a lot of people were like latching on to the crazy shit that Drake did on this album to like criticize it, but weren't really criticizing the album. And I noticed that, and I was just like, okay, well now I gotta really listen to this album to see if I do find the crazy shit that people are talking about. But yeah, that was a roundabout way of saying that I feel like a lot of people are criticizing the songs on his album, saying it's not good because they don't necessarily love the sound of it. Like, oh, it's too boring, it's too laid back, right? Which I don't think is bad, because that's the vibe he's going for. And the songs actually work if you listen to them in the right environment, in the right context. And a lot of people are missing that context, again, not because they're losers, even though I really want to say that, but that's kind of a bridge too far. It's just that they're not in that lifestyle, right? But anybody in that lifestyle that Drake is in, and not just like a really rich person, but just like clubs, you know what I mean? This kind of shit, like lounges, shit like that, are gonna eat up these songs. I mean, considering the fact that "Girls Want Girls" is one of the most played songs on the album, and people say it has one of the craziest lines, should tell you what kind of people are listening to this album and what they want to get out of it. It's just like a vibe. A lot of the songs from the first half are just a vibe, and people didn't like that vibe, were not in tune with that vibe. You know what I mean? They thought it was boring. Meanwhile, other people would say it's a vibe. You see, it's all about perspective. Some people say it's boring. Some people say it's a vibe. But regardless, back to my overall point, even if you don't like the sounds, right? If you don't like the songs you think is boring, you cannot say the amount of care that went into every single one of these songs doesn't put it leagues above everything that he's put out since If You're Reading This Is Too Late. Because regardless of what you want to say about those past couple of albums, it has a lot of singles, this, whatever, they don't really feel like fully fleshed out songs. You know what I mean? Like Views. He's hopping on the world music trend, right? With Controlla, One Dance, Too Good For You. That's one of my favorites of that shit. They're good songs, but it doesn't feel like he put all his effort into every single one of the songs on Views. Well, More Life, kind of the same shit, to be honest, although not as much. Even though I really haven't listened to More Life like that much. I did hear it. I did a full listen of it, but I don't really remember. I have to go back to really gather my thoughts on that album. But I'm pretty sure even that album, which is not really an album. So I guess I'm going to eliminate that because that's like a playlist. So he's only really had 2 albums after If You're Reading This Is Too Late. It's been Views and then Scorpion. So I explained my disdain for Views, even though Views is pretty good, but it's definitely not to the level of care that this album has. Then you jump to Scorpion. That whole album was redone in less than a couple months, because he changed it dramatically from the time that he had his beef with Pusha and Kanye. So even that, obviously he wasn't working on that specific album for a long time. And you can tell there's a lot of highlights, but there's a lot of lowlights. I feel like with this album, even if you don't like the songs, the amount of care that went into every single song, it's like consistently the same. And off that alone, I got that from the first listen. Because I'm listening to the songs, knowing that a lot of people hate this album, and I'm like, this is not sounding that bad. What are these people talking about? Like, I'm hearing every song, and I'm like, okay, this is a solid song that has a lot of parts to it. There's a lot of care to it. You know what I mean? It's like fully realized. I don't know. So that's the reason why I say this album is good, actually. Because on an objective level, and again, this goes to my philosophy of reviewing art, is that there's a subjective part, there's an objective part. You can separate the two or unite them, but there are 2 different parts to art. It's not all objective or all subjective. But I think the parts that I can objectively look at is just the amount of care that went into the songs. I think objectively, he did put more effort into these songs, these 21 songs that he did on his past 2 albums, Views and Scorpion. So that's why I think this album was good, because objectively, if you look at it that way, at the very least, it's good. And then this goes with the other criticism that this album got a lot, is that, like, even the songs that people did like, the songs that were good, they were like, oh, this is shit that Drake has done so much. Drake has done this so much. I kind of get that criticism, but I don't at the same time, because just because you do something multiple times doesn't mean that it's bad, right? Like, just because Drake has done a song like No Friends in the Industry, or like The Remorse, or like the intro, right? Champagne Poetry, or like obviously 7 a.m. He has a lot of those type of songs, or like what am I thinking of? Let me scroll down a little bit. Fucking Fans. You Only Live Twice. That's the song I was thinking about. Which You Only Live Twice is very reminiscent of Lord Knows. Just because he's done songs like those doesn't mean that the songs that are in this one aren't good. Again, back to Certified Lover Boy is good, actually. Just because you've heard it before doesn't mean it's bad now. It can mean that you're tired of it, and that's your subjective opinion, and you're fine to have it. But you can't say that the song is bad because you've heard it before. That's where like a little objectivity has to come in. And this is the last, or this is one more real big issue with the. This is one more point in terms of why a lot of people are hating it. A lot of the people that are hating it, it's two kinds of people, and they kind of, cross and correlate, but this has to be mentioned. There's the people who have never liked Drake for whatever reason. You can have whatever reason you want. Have never liked Drake. Just, you can say you're jealous, but that's like the childish, immature, reason you give to somebody for not liking something. But it is a reality sometimes. But let's just say that. It could be that you're jealous of Drake. It could be like, oh, he's too successful. It could be he's the biggest artist in the world. It could be that, right? Like, it could be so many reasons that people may not like Drake. But a lot of people just don't like Drake. And I feel like this is such a Drake album. This is almost like the quintessential Drake album. Like, he doubles down on so much of the shit that he's been doing in the past, 5 years, and his new evolved sound, that I feel like if you don't like Drake, there's no fucking chance in hell you're going to like this album. So there's that bias already there inherently. And the other kind of people that really don't like this album are Kanye fans. Because Kanye fans obviously feel this weird, almost K-pop-ish rivalry with Drake and Drake's music, because I guess they're beefing now, and Drake is coming at, Kanye, and Kanye stands there like, no, Kanye is bigger than Drake. Fuck Drake. Who cares about Drake? Drake makes horrible music, and Kanye's daddy. Kanye's daddy. Kanye's daddy. Like, that's what Kanye stands all say. Their subreddits and their fucking Facebook communities, their group chats, whatever. Those are the other people that are really pushing this narrative that this album is horrible. Like, they're really, I've heard some Kanye fans saying that this is worse than the Scorpion, which is like, that's like, what's that mean? It's like, tell me you're a Kanye stan without telling me you're a Kanye stan. Say that Scorpion is better than Certified Lover Boy. That's how I will know. It's crazy, man. And so those are like the two people that, regardless of what the quality, this had to have been a 10 out of 10 for them to even admit that this album was good. I feel like at worst, you could say this album is mid. And I can't blame you. You can say this album is boring. This album is mid, right? I personally think it's good. I gave my reasons why. But you could say that and I wouldn't be mad at you, right? But saying that it's like objectively bad, that's where like I think it's crossing the line. Because it's objectively not. It can be boring, but it's not bad. Boring is not bad. At the very least, boring is mid. Just because you find something boring doesn't make it bad. People are throwing out the bad word too loosely on this album and just in any type of art. Like, when people don't like something, it's like, oh, this shit is horrible. Like, this takes me back to like when I used to be in film Twitter, right? When I used to really be heavily into whatever the fuck they were arguing on the daily basis when I was in high school. And I saw this movie Vice, the Adam McKay, like, what's his name? The guy that got shot in the face, Dick Cheney, the Dick Cheney movie, the Adam McKay Dick Cheney movie. That movie came out and it was very divisive, and a lot of people were saying the movie was outright bad. And I was just like, no, it's not. You just didn't like it, but that doesn't mean it's bad. That's how I feel about Drake's album. People are saying it's bad when it's not bad. And the way people are saying it's bad makes me defend this album, and then it sounds like I'm saying this album is amazing. When all I'm saying is this album's good. It's serviceable. There's a lot of songs, personally, I've been going and listening to a lot. And actually, this is going to lead into my favorite tracks of this album, which is like Get Along Better. Incredible. One of Drake's best R&B songs. Raise My Mind. One of Drake's greatest R&B songs. You know what I mean? 7 a.m. Bridal Path. One of Drake's best rap songs. You Only Live Twice. One of Drake's best rap songs. You know what I mean? No Friends in the Industry, one of Drake's hardest fucking songs he's ever done. So you see what I'm saying? It's almost like there's actually like a lot of really good songs on his album, but people are just like saying it's all bad, and that's what bothers me. It's like, if you can't see that Pipe Down is an incredible song, in my opinion, one of the best songs of the year, then I don't know what the fuck I'm talking to you about. Let me scroll up. Yeah, and There's a lot of mid songs, obviously, like Girls Want Girls, you could say it's mid, and The Bible, you could say is mid. Level, besides the Jay-Z verse, you could say is mid. Fair Trade, I don't think you can say is mid. It's pretty good. TSUs, you can say is mid, especially with the beat switch at the end. Kind of fucked up that song. It's been such an anticipated song that he kind of fucked that up at the end. I guess just to make it different because it's been leaked for so long. Whatever. In Too Deep, I think it's a pretty good song. Not too replayable. Like, I'm not finding myself listening to that one a lot, but I loved it the first time I heard it. It's an interesting detour to what Drake normally does. Yeah, I was just going, I guess, over my favorite songs. I think, yeah, my favorite songs, I Miss You Too. I couldn't believe a Kid Cudi song would be one of my favorites. Shit doesn't even make sense. But it's kind of just the vibe that the song creates. It's almost like a nostalgic for a person vibe. Or like, let's get together again. It's kind of that thing of like, what the fuck are we doing? This is all bullshit. Let's just get back together. I miss you. You know what I mean? Fine, I miss you too. That's part of the chorus. So I really love that song. Fucking Fans, surprisingly, I love, even though I think most people absolutely despise. I think it's just because it sounds like a Party Next Door song, and I like Party Next Door songs. Which I think more people need to see it through that lens. I would be surprised if this was literally just a throwaway Party Next Door song that Drake just took and made. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a fully realized Party Next Door song, and then Drake literally just remade the whole thing. It sounds so much like a Party Next Door song. Like, this could have been a song that was off of Party Mobile, which I actually really like. So that would explain why that's been one of my favorites, even though people hate it. That's how I see that song, at least in my head. Race My Mind is pretty good, but it's not one of my favorites. Pipe Down is absolutely my favorite song on the album. And those are like my favorites that I keep going back to. For sure. Songs I didn't like, it's not that I hate it. Like, a lot of the songs I didn't like at first listen, but the more I listen to them, the more they grow on me. So now I don't really have that many that I hate it. In Fountains with Thames, I didn't hate either. But it's not one I'm going to go back to. Just because it's so kind of, you got to be in the right mood, and you got to be in that like dance hall-ish. And it's not as catchy of a dance hall or like a Afro beats type of song as I would have liked it to be. But I think that's my least favorite, and it's not even that bad. So again, it's like it goes with this album was good actually, because none of these songs are like terrible. You could just like them or not, but in terms of like on a like technical sense, the care that goes into every song you can't deny, and that's what's bothering me. Yeah, so I mentioned my favorite songs and my least favorite songs. I could go into in depth about all the other crazy shit that happened in this album. There's a lot of weird moments that I would have loved to talk about. I personally think I could have defended that lesbian bar, but I'm not going to because it's going to make me sound like a fucking crazy person. But personally, I kind of got what Drake was saying. Even if he meant it as a joke, it will be funny. But I think even if he meant it seriously, I think I know exactly what he's going for. But I'm not going to get into that. That's a little too far. And also, I'm kind of tired. And I got to get ready for my second dose. Can you believe that? Maybe this will be the last review I ever record. So wish me luck, guys. That second chip, might fuck up things in my body. But all right, let's move on. Yeah, like I was saying, there's a lot of other big moments that I could have talked about. But I'll just leave it at, like I said in the beginning of this review, I haven't listened to Donda yet. But Donda is probably more creative. And, so in that way, I could totally see it being better than Certified Lover Boy. So I do think I'm going to go listen to that Kanye album. And I'll see if Donda truly is better than CLB.
I'm wide open like a receiver. Pass me that, I won't miss. Catch it like a golden retriever.